Hi, this is George,
How are y'all doing today? I'm Eric.
and we're here to talk about Warframe. So, I got into Warframe a couple times. This isn't actually my first time getting to Warframe. I tried to get into Warframe a long time ago, like 2013, but I didn't take it very seriously. So now
It's
I've
not
tried
the
it again.
easiest.
Has it changed a lot?
So as of 2017, late 2017, this game has undergone like a massive, massive change in which they introduced this thing called the Plains of Eidolon and Cetus.
I
Cetus
haven't
is a
even gotten
city.
to that.
I believe you have. You've been to Earth, right?
Well, you're not allowed to go to the Plains of Eidolon. You know,
Oh, not until you kill Vor. All right. So
I
what
killed that
happened?
guy too, or I
Oh,
killed
did you?
some guy.
You might have
Anyways.
killed some guy
I'm
because.
on Mars, okay?
Oh yeah, then you have access to the Plains of Eidolon to be
So I have
sure.
to go back. I have to backtrack to the planes.
I mean, it's yeah, you do, but
Oh
you
my
just
god.
click on it. It's like you don't actually have to travel or
Yeah, I
anything.
know. I just didn't think about going back there because, like, why would I go back to the starting area?
Because all the end game stuff, all the new end game stuff is in the Plains of Eidolon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing that you really like Warframe. Like, you've been playing it for how long?
Uh, I, jeez, I want to check like when was the first time I played this game. It's been years. I'll tell you that.
I
I
feel
don't.
like it's been like 4 years.
I think no, it's been well over 4 years. I just don't know exactly when. No, it might have been. Actually, it might have been just 4 years. I'm closing in on 1,200 hours on this game. I am a mastery 23, going on 24, which is for those people who aren't founders, the highest mastery you can get to, 24. So I've played this game a lot.
Are you?
As to whether I like this or whether this is a game that I just kind of masochistically play because I know it's supposed to be good, we can talk more about that.
Well, let's talk about it right now. Are you ready to give it a score? I usually give the score at the start.
Oh, I mean, all right. So let me know about your scoring scale. Yeah, let me know
So,
that first.
okay. For
I
everyone
don't like
who
to give scores because I want to just talk about the game and then people can inference for themselves whether or not this is
Okay.
interesting. But that's me.
I still feel like we should give a score. My scoring guideline is just, thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs sideways. So thumbs down means, you shouldn't play this game, you should probably avoid it. If you're really, really enthusiastic about similar games or similar genres, then maybe it'll be a good for you, but even in that scenario, I feel like there are other, better games in the same genre. Thumbs up means it's good, you should check it out and play it. Thumbs sideways means, maybe you should pass. It would really depend. It's sort of a borderline, maybe play or play or not. And then I also mention three other games, preferably three other games that are in the same genre. So, the top three games of this genre, and if this game is a thumbs down, then we can point to these three other games that are just better. If this is like a thumbs up, then maybe you don't have to name three other games. This could be one of the top three in the genre. And so, what genre would Warframe be? Because I feel like it's kind of in the Borderlands genre where you just shoot and grind.
Loop-based action RPG is what I would say. Yeah, it's a shooter. Yeah, you have like melee options and stuff, and you play from the third-person camera. But you have abilities, you have builds. It's in a you have builds in a similar vein to like the gameplay wise. The you have a builds in a similar way to Path of Exile. No, it's not Path of Exile. You're not going to have this like insane giant awesome passive tree, but what you will have are you will have these things called mods. You'll adjust your warframe, which is basically your character. You'll adjust your weapons, all like three of them that you can bring along with you. You'll adjust your companion. You'll adjust
I I didn't
like
even get a companion. Like, what companion?
yeah, you yeah, yeah, so fair warning about the game. The introduction to the game, the beginning of the game is one of the most convoluted messes and overwhelming things I've ever seen.
I just thought it was boring. Like, I didn't think it was convoluted.
Yeah, it's convoluted in the way you don't even know, you didn't have a companion, right?
No.
Well, let me tell you that you could have gotten your companion a long time ago. You just had to stop by the market and buy a blueprint for it. And once you buy the blueprint, it'll tell you the resources that you need to build it. And then you would have gathered those resources and then built it. And then it would have taken, I think, 24 hours for a sentinel.
I think there's a mission where I have to capture this thing. Is that what the companion is?
Absolutely not. No.
Oh, okay. Well, I always
actually, it might be Howl the Kubro. That's one of them.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. You can see, like, it's a total mess, and it is boring in the beginning. The end game, the idea of it is making these really unique, spectacular builds, based on whatever weapon you want to use, whatever Warframe you want to use. Because at the end of the game, you're going to hear something called sortie viable. In reality, everything is sortie viable. There's a guy that proved it by using the very starting kit weapons and the very starting kit Warframe. And all he did was just add modifications. And,
who's sortie?
So do you know what a military sortie is? It's like an away mission. SORTIE, an attack made by troops coming out from a position of defense. So what a sortie is, it's basically just an away mission in real life. A sortie in Warframe is a very end game set of missions. You will take your character. You have to have a level 30 Warframe, which is the highest level. And you basically just do super high level. I wouldn't say super high level missions, but in general, they're pretty high level missions. They're level 50 to 60, 60 to 70, and actually, I'm not sure if the second one's 60 to 7, but the last one is 80 to 100. And they don't obviously play around in that range. You're not going to find enemies that are only level 80 to level 100. You'll see level 115 enemies sometimes 120. Those sorties they basically give you end game rewards and stuff like that, but they're actually pretty difficult because all of them have a modifier on them. Like, they'll have enemy physical enhancement.
Yeah, this is really starting to sound like Diablo, honestly.
Diablo is a loot based RPG, right? So it's pretty similar. Not entirely similar. Don't hate me for that, but it is. Yeah, it's very loot based. There's a lot of RNG involved. I won't lie about that, and that's actually one of the cons, which is kind of a strange thing to talk about immediately. But
just immediately get into all the terrible things.
Yeah. This happened on stream actually for me. Someone came in and they were like, "Hey, there are a lot of people giving biased opinions about Warframe. I wanted to hear yours." I'm like, "Okay, well, I've played this game for a long time and I believed in it to play it this long, so you're gonna get a biased opinion." And then we just immediately started listing off the cons. Things like the grind in this game is pretty terrible. Why is it terrible? Because of RNG.
I think all grind is actually terrible. Like, I don't think grind is very fun for me. And spoiler alert, Warframe kind of has a lot of grinding.
Yeah, it really, really does. So for those of you, if I just say grind, that doesn't tell you anything, right?
Okay.
Oh, I heard this game was grindy, and if some fan comes up to you and says, "Oh yeah, what didn't you like about the grind?" and then you just say, "I don't know." Well, that's no argument. You know what I mean? So let me tell you about the grinds, and then you can think about it for yourself. So this is one aspect, and there are many things you can grind for in this game, okay? Just letting you know. One aspect. I want a weapon, let's say. I have the mastery rank for a weapon. Let's say it's an easy weapon. So I will go to the market, the in-game market. I will find whatever item that is. Let's say, I don't know, a bolto, which is a random pistol. And I will purchase the blueprint for it. Once I purchase the blueprint, it'll show me the resources I need to build that bolto. Now you have to go to different planets to get your resources to build that bolto. And you can't get them from just anywhere. So, for example, if you want polymer bundles, you have to go to either Mercury, Mars, or I believe Uranus is the other one that has them. I think those are the only 3 planets. I think there might be more. But anyway, like, there are very specific planets that have those resources, and you have to get them. And some resources are more rare than others. So once I have all those resources, then I can go to my foundry and I can build said weapon. That weapon is going to take 12 hours to build, or you can rush it with premium currency. Yeah, by paying money. So that's the turn off. Like, there are so many archaic free-to-play systems that exist in the game. But wait, there's more. If you build that weapon, you might not have enough slots to use that weapon because you have only a limited amount of weapon slots. So then you'll have to buy more weapon slots or sell your existing weapons. And to buy more weapon slots,
unequip your current weapons.
Oh no, yeah, you can swap out your weapons freely. I'm saying your weapons on spare, like the weapons that you don't have equipped.
Oh,
those go into inventory, and you have a limited space in your inventory. You can increase that by paying premium currency. Do you see like how that feels like a very typical garbage free to play system?
Yeah, I can see your complaint, but my bigger complaint about the grinding was that it just wasn't fun. That, I think the general experience of Warframe is you start a mission, you, I don't know, run through it, kill some random dude, and then you run out? Like, is that generally how Warframe is supposed to work?
So, on paper, it seems really cool what they're doing. And what that is for each mission, there's
different goals?
There are different goals.
Yeah.
Per mission. So one of them, the one that you were talking about, I'm assuming was a capture mission.
Yeah, probably.
It went very fast, and it wasn't like a boss fight or anything. A boss fight is assassination.
Other than boss fights, most of the missions felt pretty similar, though. Like, you just kind of run in, you shoot some random guy, and then you run out.
So there's capture, which is there is a random guy that is like high value.
Yeah, you need to shoot him.
You kill him. He goes onto the ground. You capture him. And it's like this super lengthy...
It's a Pokeball.
Yeah, it's like a Pokeball. Sometimes you have a very rare chance for that mission where you capture someone in capture for it to go to an exterminate mission, which means you just have to kill everyone.
Those are really boring.
Yeah, and yeah. So there is a lot of mindless killing of masses of troops, which can be fun, but I have a theory on why a lot of Warframe can't be fun. There are actually like a good amount of theories, but one of them, the enemies are kind of like sporadically spaced out, so it's not like you can just kill them all at once. And you think that would be a good thing, but it ends up just getting boring, and then a lot of people just skip enemies. In fact, like, the popular extermination strategy is to just go to the end of the mission, which will teleport all of the enemies to a place that's kind of close to the end, and then you can just kill them all in one go.
Wow.
And,
I should have done that.
There are a lot of really weird things like that, but those get, I wouldn't say fixed, but you can see the game going in a much better direction with the updates that they did in Plains of Eidolon, for example. Because in Plains of Eidolon they add like a whole new set of missions. What really made what didn't help Warframe become like a fun game. Warframe is procedurally generated normally. Like, they have a set of tiles that are
they stitch them together, basically.
They stitch them together. And they're all pretty enclosed. Like, I think the biggest room is I think it's less than 1,000 meters. I'm pretty sure. I'm not entirely sure. Okay. But it's a small area. Oh, it might be less than 500. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, yeah, like the tiles are stitched together. The game space is pretty small. And so what Plains of Eidolon did was it made like this massive 3 kilometer,
Plain
basically
of
plain.
Eidolon.
It's more like a hill, but
Hills of Eidolon.
hills of Idola. But they made like this giant area where you could kind of freely use your Warframe ability, like freely use your Warframes, and it was like it was, what do you call it, taken very positively.
Do you like it?
I like it a lot.
You like being in a hill instead of cramped little rooms? Well, what a surprise.
Yeah, right? Like, I think it would be kind of obvious, but they actually did. So why I recommend this game, why I give it a huge thumbs up, is because currently, if you think about it like very objectively, it is a sandbox of a ton of weapons. Probably the most unique set of weapons I've ever seen in any video game. Like, absolutely blows Destiny out of the water. Like, easily.
I wouldn't call that like a huge variety of weapons.
No, Destiny. Well, I mean, a lot of people think that like Destiny has like very unique and interesting weapons, and I'm like, okay, no. They do have like some interesting weapons and stuff like that, but I can get like your exotic in Destiny is a casual legendary in, let's say, Borderlands, and then Destiny takes that into an entirely different level because then you can modify those very interesting weapons. And then there aren't 8 different subsets of the same gun in Warframe. Each gun is different. Now, yes, there's an assault rifle. That's just a casual assault rifle. And then there is another casual assault rifle, but they're only slightly different, but that's to be expected in a game that has like easily over 300 weapons at this point, I think. Anyway, yeah, objectively looking at the game, it is a big sandbox which has a ton of weapons, a ton of Warframes, which completely change up your gameplay style, a ton of companions, a ton of operators. Don't worry about what that is right now, but
I never even got a second Warframe. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you're missing out. But,
I don't even know how to get one.
Yeah, it's not clear. Yeah, beginning of the game is not great. So you get basically so much stuff to play around with a very large enemy variety to play around with in Warframe. And the thing is, we don't have... I guess there are a lot of enemies, but many of them aren't interesting because you just handle them the same way.
Yeah, you either shoot them or you melee them, right? Like, I guess you could throw grenades at them.
Depends on your frame. You don't have like casual grenades to throw around.
Yeah.
You have to like equip. Like, it's more like C4 than it is like C4 in like a traditional Battlefield sense than it is an actual grenade that you throw. But what do you call it? There's a you do handle most enemies just by shooting them. Sometimes you need to know like a specific mechanic for them. Like for the Bursa, they have these essentially like riot shields in front of them, so you have to get behind them and shoot them, or like hit the top of their head.
Yeah,
yeah, shoot them. Like there are certain things like that. There are these enemies called nullifiers, where they have this like bubble, and if you walk into it, it'll disable your Warframe abilities. Or if they walk into, like, let's say you have a frost bubble, which is basically like a bubble shield. And if the nullifier walks into that bubble with its bubble, it'll just turn off your shield. But then it's like, okay, so how do you handle that? Well, you just shoot him.
Oh, okay.
Haven't
met an enemy that I couldn't shoot yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll a lot of interest. I mean, I don't, like, I expect a shooter, even though it's like a loot-based semi-actiony RPG game, it's still a shooter, right? Like, you still have shooting mechanics, you still have like melee mechanics, you still handle things the same way. The thing is, a lot of games have been able to do that in an interesting way, whether it's map design, whether it's enemy design. Like, I look to the Half-Life series when I want to like see really compelling gameplay with like a simple system. but Warframe doesn't execute that super well with its enemies. What they do is they just make your character really, really cool. Your Warframes are really, really cool. Your weapon arsenal is really, really cool. Your mods, the way you can change up the way you use your weapons and your Warframes and all that are really, really cool. And that's kind of where the game is right now. It is a sandbox. And so why I recommend the game is because Plains of Eidolon showed people how much potential the game could have and how willing the developers are to putting a ton of care into the game and changing the way Warframe works, basically. We went from a game that was entirely procedurally generated, stitched together tiles to this giant open field with newer missions and like big monster hunts, like, which was kind of out of nowhere. Like when the first trailers for Plains of Eidolon came out, I remember like some of my friends were like, "Is this real? Like, are they actually doing this? Like, this is kind of out of nowhere." It
actually changed in Plains of Eidolon. Like, I'm not very familiar with what was added.
Okay, so you're familiar with the normal Warframe, right?
So normal Warframe being, you run through a level, you get to the end, and then you shoot everyone who happens to be on the way.
Kinda. There's a mission objective, but if you play in public, usually someone will do it for you.
Oh, thank God.
Actually, like for newer players, like don't even worry about that. A lot of older players have to go back to lower level missions, and then so we just help new players out. But yeah, that stitched together tile system just doesn't exist in Plains of Eidolon. Plains of Eidolon is one
long
detailed hill. Yeah, it's a series of hills, and you get these things called bounties from this town called Cetus, which it's supposed to be a sprawling marketplace, and to an extent it is, but at the same time it can feel like after your like third visit it's like, okay, well, this isn't as alive as I thought it would be. You get missions from there, which are called bounties. You'll go out into the Plains of Eidolon, and instead of being that series of stitched hallways and stuff, it's a giant set of hills where you will do your missions, like a set of missions. There are like 4 missions in a row that you have to do, and you'll do them out in the plains. And
then you go back.
There'll be like little catches to them. And then you go back, you turn in, or they automatically turn in your bounty, but then you go back and you can like cash in on your rewards, basically. And then you do all of that stuff during the day and night. But at night, something special happens. At night, there's this thing called the Eidolon. Well, it's actually called the Eidolon Terror List, but there's this giant monster that basically comes out of the ground. It's a sentient, but for your sake, it's a monster.
It's basically a boss, right? Like
it's a boss.
Shoot
him. Kind of. You can't damage him with your normal weaponry until you've ripped apart his shields, and you can only rip apart his shields with an operator. Like it's just a unique fight. And at the same time, there are these things called Vomvolus that fly around. They're like these little ghosts. They also can't be killed unless you have an operator. Like you can break them out like into their spirit form, but then you have to kill them with an operator. So there's a lot of stuff that's restricted still, but for endgame players, those are like the next things to kind of kill. And when you kill them, they drop these things called Eidolon shards. Or if you're an endgame player, they're going to be called Brilliant Eidolon shards because you'll know how to capture them. And then you turn them in and you make your operator stronger. Basically, a lot of it is strengthening your character. And Plains of Eidolon introduced a new, unique way to strengthen our character with a big map that people kind of didn't think was possible for Warframe, like Warframe going open world.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
After being this stitched together thing, it was super cool. At night, also other things happen, like the fish that spawn are different and stuff like that. You can use certain baits to get like certain end game fish, things like that. But
I never got to this fishing mini game. What is this?
Yeah, you have to remember that this was also done in 6 months. Like compared to other games, it was a pretty massive change to the game loop for being updated in such a short time. As an indie game too, as a game like Warframe, which is
Warframe is a small indie game.
Yeah, it's not a AAA. Well, I guess they have a publisher now, so anyway. But I guess if they have a publisher now, they're not indie anymore. But like the point still stands. Like massive change in a short period of time, and that represents their willingness to do like different stuff, and because of that, there's a ton of potential for the future. So that's why I would give it a plus. Is your character cool? Yes. Are your weapons cool? Yes. Is there a lot of potential, like a place where you can use all this stuff? Yes. And that's why.
Okay, so I have a different opinion, obviously. Come on.
Right.
I would give this a score thumbs down because I already don't like grindy games. So what I would define as a grindy game is that you just kind of go out there, you shoot, either in a sandbox or you just go on missions. You shoot enemies, you get loot, and then you can improve your character, and the enemies can also improve, and you just kind of repeat this loop. I think the idea of these, loot-based games is that you can do this forever. You can continuously improve yourself and then continuously go on harder and harder missions. But I felt like Warframe was, had an abnormally terrible, beginner experience where the beginning is either too easy or it's too hard. And both of those, are just not interesting to play through. And then there's the, what's it called? Just that, just playing through it when it's too easy is just really uninteresting. Playing through it when it's too hard is also really uninteresting. So I really don't like, if you're really into grindy games like Diablo or Path of Exile, I can see why you would really, really like Warframe. It's just another loot-based game, but otherwise, I probably would stay away from it. In terms of other games in this genre, we already mentioned, Diablo's in this genre, Path of Exile. What else is in here? There's got to be Borderlands, I guess, and then there's Destiny.
Yeah, a lot of people compare this game to Destiny, which obviously there are a lot of people who don't think it's a fair assessment, which I guess it isn't, but the Destiny loop is that you
go on missions and then you just do it?
Yeah, you go on missions and you get gear, but then you have these things called strikes where you just kind of repeat the same subset of missions over and over again. And they're not varied up in any way. And so when the game was released, Destiny 2, the best way, like the fastest way to gear up your character, because we were all in a race, basically, to get as good of gear as we could. We wanted to hit, I think it was 260 power level before the next Thursday because the raid would come out. And we wanted to be raid ready, was the term. And what you would do, the best way to increase your power level at the time was to beat the game as quickly as you can, and then go do these things called public events, which were basically, they had a bunch of planets that are open worldy.
Are we talking about Destiny?
We're talking about Destiny. They're open worldy, and then you would go do these things called public events. There would just be players that were there that you couldn't talk to for some reason. And
God forbid you talk to humans.
I know, right? And then you just, the mission would start, and it was in the open world. You would do it. You would get loot, and it was completely RNG based, but you get a full gun, and you would just equip that next gun, and that was it. Like, then you just went on to the next public event, and you increased your overall power level, and then you would just hope you would hope that the RNG would bless you with another. Yeah, an upgrade, and then you would just keep on doing that. And that's
there's a chance that you would get nothing, right? Like, you would just get a weaker gun, and obviously...
That was the fastest thing then, and then what that did was it opened you up to being able to do the PvP, being able to do those strikes, which are basically like it's like a WoW dungeon. It's basically a mission, like a mission in the world, and it's a little harder, and you have 3 people to do it. There's a harder version with a little twist to it called the Nightfall, which is very reminiscent of a sortie, except it's timed. And then there was the raid, and I think that covers it. That was pretty much all there was to do. There were these little things called there are these things called patrols. There are a lot of little gameplay things that are absolutely not worth it. But that was Destiny. That's a grind. And then Warframe has a grind too, where it is, you do collect weapons, you do have fantastical abilities with your characters, but they're not that similar, if it makes sense. First off, one's a first-person shooter and one's a third-person shooter, right? Okay. So they're going to feel different when you shoot. Like, very blatantly different, especially in the Plains of Eidolon, where it's extremely long range a lot of the time. Yeah, they're going to feel very, very different. Because as in the third-person camera, let's say in Warframe, right? Normally your character starts off on the left side of the screen, whereas in a first-person shooter, you're just in the center, right? In Warframe, let's say you have like a bow or something, you'll shoot your projectile is going to come from your character on the left, and it's going to go towards the center of the screen. After a certain distance, that going towards the center of the screen is going to eventually go to the right of the camera. Like, that's just the nature of a third person
right
game.
Of the like where you aimed?
Yeah, right of where you aimed.
That's hilarious. That's not how it works in a lot of games, actually. I think TF2...
A lot of games don't play at TF2 is a first-person shooter.
No, well, the thing is, the soldier's rocket launcher, the rocket would actually appear on the upper right. So even if your cursor was on the wall, if the upper right was not a wall, then it would just keep going. And then it was also 100% accurate, but it's only accurate after a certain distance.
Yeah, so yeah, it's exactly that issue, but for a third-person game.
But the other way, right? Because you're saying the gun is inaccurate after a certain distance.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
That's crazy.
Like what I can tell you is, after playing first-person shooters like competitively for a while and like caring about shooters, Warframe is not a game that feels good to play. Like, if you're not familiar with the movement system, if you're not familiar with the way weapons work.
I like the running around part. I just wish I didn't have to, constantly kill things.
Yeah, there are a lot of frames that passively let you kill stuff. Like, there's a frame called Ember, and her ult, World on Fire. It basically makes these fire explosions happen all around her. So what you can do is you can modify her to buff up your ultimate, buff up those explosions, and then you just run through the map. And you just you just parkour around and stuff, and then things will just die next to you, and you'll just run to the end. That's what Ember does. Or that's what she can do. That's one of her options. It's arguably the best thing that she's good at. And something I actually failed to mention. If you feel like your games are too slow, Warframe probably has some of the best movement in gaming right now.
Yeah, I felt like I was playing a third-person Mirror's Edge, except I have rockets.
Yeah,
except I could run way faster than any human, obviously.
Yeah, so talking about movement, they, unlike a game like Overwatch, for example, Overwatch does have momentum in it, but a lot of abilities kind of cut off your momentum. Like, were you familiar with the Genji ledge dashing?
Oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah, it was a way to dash as Genji and cancel out the negative or the loss of momentum, so you could launch your character Genji like super far. And
it's kind of like rocket jumping.
Yeah, the normal base thing for Overwatch is to greatly increase your moment, like your velocity, like just physics, just to make you faster, and then to cut all of those benefits off. Warframe doesn't do that.
Yeah,
most of the time.
Can you like build up momentum in Warframe and just continuously grow faster and faster?
Yes,
I've never gotten that to work.
That's the thing. You'd have to be familiar with the movement system. So, for example, as a veteran player, For a new player, it's like, how do you move forward? I hold sprint and I press W.
They should
I
just
guess.
get rid of that sprint button. Like,
Yeah, you do need the sprint, by the way. Just letting you know. I'll explain. So for a new player, you just run, right? You press space to jump. You'll double jump sometimes,
and that's it, right?
That's how you move in a normal game. As a veteran, I sprint using a toggle. You sprint forward. As you're sprinting, then you crouch to slide. Then while you're sliding and holding crouch at the same time, you press space to do what's called a bullet jump. You double jump in there to like get some extra speed, and you immediately press shift, which is my roll, so that you roll and you have as little momentum loss as you can. And then you crouch again to slide so that you have less friction against the floor, and then you repeat the process. So for those of you who just want to know like exactly what I'm pressing, it's ZW and then control space shift control. That's how we move normally. That's how we would go forward.
Okay, I figured out the space control part. I didn't know you could roll in the air, because they never told me.
You can roll in the air, you can roll sideways, you can roll backward, you can do a backflip, you can basically, there used to be wall running in the game, but then they replaced it with this like wall leaping thing just because it was better, which is, completely fine. Like the game has ridiculous movement. So outside of knowing like how I move, for example, because I'm constantly keeping my momentum and I'm reducing my friction and all of that stuff. If you don't want to think about that, I have my normal movement keys. I have a double jump. I have a bullet jump, which is you crouch and then you jump and you do like this little spin thing. And I have my roll, which is like my dodge. Because for different characters, it's a roll for most Warframes. For your operator, it's like this little slide thing. For your arc wing, which is basically your vehicle, it's like a little jet propulsion boost. Yeah, there are things like that, but it has easily one of the most fluid movement systems. Now you're thinking, oh, wow, that sounds awesome, right? Probably like for a lot of people that sounds like really cool.
It feels pretty good once you actually learn how
once
to
you know
do
how
it.
to
Although, I don't know how you're supposed to figure that out without somebody just telling you.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I mean by the new player experience is absolutely terrible. Like there's so many things to do in this game that I can't even cover without like forgetting about something. Like I just forgot about Arcwing entirely, and that's a whole different subset of movement. Like
I know about Arcwing. I just haven't figured out how to build it.
Yeah, things like that. That's what makes the newcomer experience so bad, but if you can push through it, you will have a lot of stuff to play with.
How much time do you expect people to take before they push through all of this? Because I feel like this is too long. This is like 12 hours of watching tutorials or something, maybe? Because there's no way they can just experiment and figure out how to, run like you move.
That's a good question. For most people, I think the average is... Well, I mean, which part are you asking? Like, how to get to, like, how long will it take to get to endgame? How long will it take to appreciate the game? Because I think of endgame and appreciating the game as, like, kind of the same location.
I feel like there's almost, outside of watching a tutorial, I don't know if there's a way that, somebody who just plays this game only can figure out all this stuff, like Arcwing, how to move properly, like you move, how to move in an Arcwing, how to move as an operator, how to do anything.
On your complete own, I don't think it's reasonable to think that anyone... Well, that's like saying the same thing about Dota, though, right? On your complete own, there's no way you learn the game at anywhere near a 5k level.
I would say in Dota, it's not important to know those things to have fun. Whereas I think in Warframe, it is actually pretty important to play the game well, to have fun. Like if you just play the game, sprinting around, shoot, sprint around here, like that's not very fun.
Yeah, then you might as well play it. Yeah,
you might as well play
if you're looking for a base game that just handles like normal movement and shooting very well, then there are like plenty of shooters. Like there's Overwatch, for example. There are just other shooters out there. If you want an experience that basically doesn't have a ceiling, I mean it does have a ceiling, but it's like the ceiling's really high, then Warframe would be that kind of game. It's definitely not geared towards casual players, like by any means. For example, let's say you're close to the end game. If you basically make a build that's not, there are like certain builds you can do that are super fun, but if you do quote unquote the wrong build, you can get completely like demolished in an end game mission. You won't be able to kill anyone. Everyone will feel like bullet sponges and they're like armored and you're like, I can't do anything here. And that'll actually be true. You can lose in the draft basically in Warframe. And that can be like super not fun if you're not experienced. It's not a casual experience by any means. It's absolutely geared towards, I wouldn't say hardcore players, but players who are willing to take the extra step. And then you're I'm not sure if I would say very well, but you are rewarded for it. Because you do have an experience that's very unique to Warframe that you can't really get out of any other game.
Yeah. Would you say like Warframe is a very deep game? Because it feels like a lot of loot-based games tend to be pretty deep. There's a lot of player builds, I want to say. Player builds that you can explore, you can experiment with. And I feel like Warframe would fulfill that more so than I guess Diablo 3 or Borderlands.
Yeah, no. Warframe's a very deep game. Very deep game. Yeah. Very you know the whole game design argument between breadth and depth, right?
Yeah. But I think the problem here is less about the breadth depth thing. Is more about how do players even start to understand the deep mechanics of Warframe, because nobody's gonna figure this out with the in-game tutorial.
Yeah, with the in-game tutorial, no. It's have to.
It's literally a page explaining the mechanics. Like nobody wants to read a whole page explaining what the Forge does.
By the way, my movement system is not the same as a lot of people's movement systems. They just my movement system is from a group of friends who we went out of our way to figure out every nuance of the movement, and so that we came up with the control space shift control.
So what is the thing. I guess the average player's move system?
They just sprint and then they control space, control. Okay. Well, control. Actually, sometimes they literally just control shift, which means they're sliding and then they're rolling, sliding and rolling.
I actually just bullet jumped and controlled a lot, so I just went control.
Bullet jump has a set momentum, so you have to be careful about that. It's faster than your sprint, but overall you're going to lose more speed if you don't cancel that out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You understand? There's not a... You might be able to Google and someone will find the same thing as us, but a lot of what we've done, for example, for myself to move fast in the game has been experimenting I wouldn't say on my own, with my friends, but experimenting outside of a tutorial, outside of forum posts, in the game, and thinking, all right, I lose momentum here. I don't lose momentum here. This cancels out my lack of momentum. This keeps my friction low. Things like that. And that's pretty consistent.
All right. Well,
yeah.
That's actually all I have to talk about Warframe. It just feels, not a very good first player experience. If you're really into grindy loot based games, this game sounds like it might be fun for you. Yeah, that's all I have to say. You have anything else to say about this game?
After talking with Digital Extremes at TwitchCon, this is in 2017, by the way.
So Digital Extremes is the people who made Warframe.
Yeah, Warframe.
Yeah, they developed Warframe.
They were asking the community like what they thought about Planes of Eidolon. Everyone's like, yes, this is great. This is a huge step in the right direction, especially with like a lot of people dipping out of Warframe pretty early a while back, saying this game doesn't have a future and stuff like that. People turning around and being like, this game does have a future. This is a huge step in the right direction. We want to see more things like this. And for DE to say Planes of Eidolon is now their standard, and then you can, by the way, you can verify all this information that I'm telling you through the TwitchCon 2017 VODs, because they have these online, open to the public. So they talked about how this is like their new standard. They might want to play around with a new competitive mode, things like that. They basically ask what the players want, and they constantly listen. And yes, they don't do everything perfectly, universal vacuum, but they do a lot of listening, a lot more so than other companies, and they have in my opinion, a ton of potential with this. So that's what I have to say about this game. There is a ton of potential, and I think it's worth your time.
Oh, by the way, is there like a clan system? Because that's what I was told by some other people.
Yeah, there's a clan system. There are a lot of weapons that are locked out to you, like if you want to build them for free. There are a lot of weapons that are locked out if you don't have a clan.
Yeah,
because you need to do this stuff called clan research, where you have to research the weapon, which you contribute resources into, and then it researches, and then you have the blueprint unlocked for your entire clan. If you don't have a clan, that's a huge detriment in this game. So, yeah, just saying.
All right. It wasn't really made clear to me in any of the what's it called? Gameplay.
No, this game is not clear. It's very much.
I didn't even know about clans until somebody told me.
If you're not a casual gamer and you want to take the extra mile, this game is very rewarding. I'll just say that.
All right, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on. That's all we have for today, folks. You can contact me by email at GandCgamecorner@gmail.com. You can also reach me at Twitter at MeisterJaggers.
I stream often at twitch.tv/Eric_680, and you can follow me on Twitter at EricToy. That's ERICTHOI.
And don't worry, links are in the show notes.